Welcome back. You are tuned in to Traders Nation. My pleasure to have with us here today William Baker, authored Endless Money, The Moral Hazards of Socialism. Bill, welcome to Traders Nation. How are you today?
Great, thank you.
Good, good. You know, Bill, we face higher taxes, greater spending, and more debt as a nation as ever. Are we at a critical crossroads here that our leaders don't really have a realistic solution for?
Well, yes, that's kind of the point of my book. I think we've had a financial crisis, and they're trying to postpone the effects of it.
Yeah,
now.
Bill, listen, I think they totally have their eye off the ball. They've got their ideologies in the way. They're trying to pass legislation. I'm talking about the health care bill. It's trillions and trillions of nothing but more spending. And where are they on the jobs? Where are they on actually stimulating the economy to pay for all this socialism?
Well, I'm not for government being in the business of trying to stimulate the economy. I think the American people are capable of doing that.
Bill, real quick. I think you're absolutely right with that. But there's no guidance there. There's nothing there. And I think in ways they're getting in the way of everybody pulling their bootstraps up and trying to get ourselves out of this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's no question. I mean, a lot of people think these interventions have been helpful, but you know, where have we seen the government actually run a business profitably? You know, you look at the history of the post office and Amtrak and whatnot. Do we really want them in the auto business and the banking business and so forth?
No, they're not. They're not business people, are they? I mean, we're talking about legislators, lawmakers, okay, and then go down even further and say, oh, they're mostly attorneys.
Right, and the biggest intervention of all is they're basically supplying almost 100% of the credit for the housing market today. They're putting up all the dough to buy all these houses. It's, you know, a massive amount of money annually.
All right, and some of those neighborhoods are getting bulldozed. That's a great program. All right, right? All right, so we've seen, this is a big question. I don't hear anybody talking about this. We've seen the internet bubble, okay? We're going through the financial and the housing bubble with great pain. But will we see a government bubble?
I think we have, because I think people, all of our trading partners are holding U.S. Treasuries and are probably coming to understand that in a socialist system such as the one we have, you know, you're expecting about 6 million households to pay $12 trillion of debt. You just divide one by the other, and you see that you know, there's well over $1 million, really about $1.5 million for all these households that are the ones that are supposed to pay the taxes. So so we're bankrupt. So. You know, I'm not saying the dollar is a worse currency than all the others in the world. Those are being printed like they're toilet paper too, but it's reaching a more frantic pace now, and they're trying to save their skins. All the socialist governments basically, and it's going to be interesting, to say the least.
You know, we've had socialist governments around the world, communist countries, that say, hey, what are you guys doing? Well, what are we doing? Because we're going down, I think we're going down the wrong path. And every day that goes by, Bill, and you may agree with this, we're losing time. When we're completely focused off the wrong game, every day that goes by, we're losing time. It's going to be that much longer before we get out of this pit, if we get out of it at all. Your thoughts?
Right, and you're continuing, you know, what the Austrian economists call malinvestment. You're directing $1 to $2 trillion into the housing market through this artificial provision of credit.
Yeah.
So maybe that money could be going into building factories that could export products, and maybe that could happen if we, you know, didn't have a rigged exchange rate based on all these competing fiat currencies, but you know, it's based on gold.
Sure. All right. Now, how has Endless Money, how have you examined governments in the country's financial system, and in what way have we embraced socialism, and will it remain?
I think that, you know, the public doesn't realize where we've come. Let me give you just one quick fact. People think of Roosevelt in the 1930s as being, you know, socialist, and because he had this policy, soak the rich, right?
Right.
Well, take the top income tax bracket today. It's 35%, plus you got all the state taxes and other taxes, but it's 35% is the top rate for a couple earning $350,000 a year.
Yeah.
If you use the CPI, which itself is probably flawed, but if you use it and deflate it all the way back to the 1930s when there were the highest tax rates under Roosevelt, that same couple paying 35% today would only be in the 16% bracket. That's 16% bracket.
Sure.
So basically the middle class and the upper middle class, especially the ones that run small business and everything, are being taxed at triple the rate of 2 generations ago. And we don't think that we're in a socialist economy now.
Yeah. I know.
It's 3 times as worse.
Bill, it's absolutely crushing. California is a good example of that. For years and years, even during prosperity, California, between taxing and regulations, was a stranglehold to businesses out in California. Now they're wondering, hey, where are you guys going? Because they're bailing out of California. California is imploding as we talk here today. And they say, as California goes, the U.S. goes. Is that necessarily true?
It's a quirk of our country. They've been in the forefront of everything: the environmental movement, the regulatory movement, you name it.
Right. Well, there's no money in free, and there's no money in social programs, that's for sure. And that's burdening. I don't know what they're going to do over there, because the more you tax people with money, it's going to be crushing to them. That money's going to disappear. You got people from New York and New Jersey. They're fleeing because they can't take the tax anymore. They're going to wherever they're going to be taxed less. That's what smart money does, right?
That's right. But more sadly, I mean, you look at manufacturing capacity and engineering and all that sort of thing. It's migrated to the east, to Asia.
Yeah.
So that's another problem besides just people moving to another state in the United States.
Sure. Social justice, another big problem. When the takers outweigh the givers, is it game over?
Well, that's what Maggie Thatcher said, that the problem with socialism is you run out of other people's money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. All right. All right, so let's talk about culture and today's environment. The give me environment, we need big government in our lives environment. Is it a fluke, I'm kind of hoping, or is it a trend you think that's going to stay here in the United States?
Well, what I worry about the most is how ingrained is it. I mean, I live in a city in Baltimore where basically, something like 50% of the people who go to the public school system don't even graduate. And, why do they do that? I mean, there's a cultural issue there that has to be addressed separate from a lot of these political and economic solutions. And it's certainly been aided by the growth of the welfare high-tax state.
Sure.
Which is causing this persistence and ability to fall back on things.
Bill, what do we do as Americans where you have people that are out of jobs and you extend unemployment benefits, but then you take away the incentive to try to find a job? Is that a double-edged sword for us?
It's really tough. Down at that lower end, you've probably seen some of the studies on how your incremental tax rate to try to claw yourself up out of the bottom is quite high because you're receiving benefits essentially with a negative tax rate, and as soon as you start getting a job, you got to start paying taxes. So
sure.
your taxes on the first couple of new dollars that you earn are as high as people in the top brackets.
Right. Right.
It's not a good thing.
All right. So we see socialism in many forms, and one of them, of course, is income, as we're talking about right now. But surprisingly, you mentioned credit. How is that playing out? Socialism credit, what is that?
Well, this gets a little more complicated, and I think that there's a real lack of ignorance of the fact that we're on what's known as a fiat currency system, and not everybody knows what that is. But
right.
It's basically our money. Think about this. Since 1971, when Nixon closed the gold window,
right.
From that point to today, of all of our money supply, our broad money supply, M3, 95% of all those dollars that we're using today were printed since that date, 1971.
Yeah.
And they get printed through the mechanism of banks creating credit. The bank gives a loan to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith pays a bunch of contractors, whatever. They make a deposit in the bank.
This is what happened, folks. Nixon took away the gold standard. Basically said, hey, for every dollar we print, we're going to back it up with gold. Took that away and said, by the way, trust us. Bill Baker's with us today. Endless Money, the Moral Hazards of Socialism. Bill, thanks for your time here on Treasures Nation. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Kurt.
You're more than welcome. We're out of time. Head out today, Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com. Get a copy, Endless Money.